If everybody could share it out and tap the screen, I would appreciate it. Okay, I think everything ready. Thank you guys. Hi, Trouble.
Hey, I'm here.
I'm so happy you're here.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Got everything set up, so just let me know whenever you're ready.
Okay. So Trouble is my special guest, guys. I'm so honored that she agreed to do this. I think she's perfect for it, and she's helping me out. Before we get started, first I just want to say good evening to everybody. Tonight we're here just to have a story time about somebody who built their social media presence, I guess you could say, on lies and chaos, and how it all fell apart. And I've asked Trouble to read for me. So if everybody could just kind of take a minute and think about somebody or people that you trust, the ones that maybe you've grown closer to off this app, the ones that maybe you've confided in or trusted with your stories or private information, or even shared your family with. Someone who may have smiled in your face and come to find out they were setting fires behind your back. Sometimes, a person who seems to listen to you the most results in that same someone using it against you. And some people may relate to this story in some ways. Some people might not even know what I'm talking about. But I guarantee people will find out on their own time. And if anybody has been through a similar situation, you may recognize some of the examples in tonight's story. A person who's made up of chaos and lies, twisted truths, manipulation, someone who hides behind a 5-filter mask, they soon reveal themselves in time. So tonight's story is just about that. So get comfortable, grab your snacks. I'm going to start I'm just going to put something up on the screen. Let me see if I can figure this out and remember. For visual purposes, I'm sure people will understand why I'm about to put this up. Just because of the chaos we have. I'm sure people will understand. Just going on. I'm going to put it up quick. People can screenshot it and do what they want with it. There's one there. They're basically just disclaimers. There's one there. They're basically just, All right. Let's see. And Trouble, whenever you're ready, you can start.
I almost just disconnected myself. I hit the wrong button.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I'm going to pause. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. I'm going to pause. If you need to take a break at any time, just let me know, okay?
Okay, can you hear me from where my phone is sitting? I have you guys like on my chest while I'm reading from my computer.
I can hear you. Yes. Can the chat, can you guys hear Trouble?
Gemini, I won't be looking like at the chat.
The chat, can you guys hear?
Gemini, I won't be looking like at the chat. So if like somebody needs something or if you need something, just like yell.
Okay. Very good. All right. I'm going to move. Thank you, hon.
Alrighty. Need something, just like yell.
Very good. All right. I'm going to move. Thank you, hon.
Opening. The sweetness that bites the girl who is everyone. Dora learned early that truth is optional. In the quiet bites the girl who is everyone. It was optional. In the quiet spaces between who she was and who she wanted to be, she discovered something far more powerful than honesty. She discovered reinvention. And once she realized she could change herself simply by telling a different story, she never stopped. Every morning, Dora woke up, and once she realized, every morning, Dora woke up as something new. Some days she was successful. Some days she was struggled but brave. Some days she was the hero of it. She was successful. Some days she was the hero of a tragedy no one else could see. Her social media accounts were filled with polished versions of her life, carefully chosen photos, dramatic captions, and stories that made people feel lucky to know her. In one corner of the internet, she was a victim, and know her. In one corner of another, she was a survivor. Somewhere else, she was a rising star with connections, opportunities, and insider knowledge. None of them were entirely real. Somewhere else, she was opportunities and insider knowledge. Dora didn't lie because she was cruel. She lied because lying worked. Every false detail earned her sympathy, attention, lied because she was cruel. Every false detail earned her sympathy, attention, or admiration. Every exaggerated hardship made people lean closer. Every invented success made them look up to her. So she edited it. To those who asked where she worked, she gave impressive titles. To those who asked how she knew so much, she hinted made them look up to her. So she gave impressive titles. To those who asked at secret accesses. To those who questioned her stories, she gave just enough detail to quiet them. At secret accesses to quiet them. And when someone got too curious, she lied and moved on. Her friends didn't notice at first. They were drawn in by her warmth to quiet them. She lied and moved on. First, they were drawn in by her warmth, her humor, and the way she made them feel chosen. Dora had a gift for making people feel like they were part of something special. Her humor and the way Dora had a gift for making people feel like they were inside her inner circle, privy to knowledge that no one else knew. But even inside that circle, Dora was always alone. Privy to knowledge that no one inside that circle, Dora was always alone. Because no one can truly know someone who is constantly pretending to be someone else. Each relationship Dora built pretending to be someone else. Each relationship Dora built was based on a version of herself that couldn't survive the light of honesty. And every time a crack appeared, a contradiction, a missing detail, a lie that didn't quite line up, she felt the similar itch to run. She didn't fear being disliked, she feared being seen. So when people started comparing notes, when stories didn't match, when questions became sharper and quieter all at once, didn't match. When questions became Dora did what she always did. She disappeared. A new username, a new friend group, a new storyline. The old one left behind like a costume. Dora did what she always did. A new storyline. On a stage. And somewhere, just beneath the layers of carefully crafted personas, the real Dora waited. Silent. Hidden. And terrified that if anyone ever met her, they wouldn't stay. Dora waited. Silent. Terrified that if anyone ever met her, that was the true mask she wore, or what is known as the 5 filter. And this is a story of how it finally began to slip. is known as the 5 filter of how it finally began to slip. Dora looked like the kind of person you could trust. Soft-spoken, polite, almost painfully sweet. Her laugh sounded like sunshine breaking through clouds. She asked the right questions, remembered tiny details, complimented effortlessly. People liked her because she made them feel seen, like her stories mattered. But that was the trick, because Dora didn't care about your story. Not really. Made them feel seen, like her stories mattered. Because Dora didn't care about your story. She cared about what she could do with it, and what she could get out of it. She thrived on chaos, not random chaos. Her chaos was precise. With it, and what she could get out of it, not random chaos, surgical and addictive. She whispered contradictions into conversations and then watched them spread. She spun misinformation. She whispered contradictions into them spread. With a smile, it made it seem like it had always been true. She knew exactly which buttons to press to make people doubt themselves, argue with each other, or bend to her will. Her sweetness was a mask, literally a 5-filter mask. The mask made you trust her before you could even question her motives. This was a mask, literally. The mask made you trust her before you could choose your friends carefully, because some sweetness is designed to bite. Chapter 1, The First Smile. Dora arrived. Some sweetness is designed to bite. The first smile, like sunlight in a crowded room. Her presence wasn't loud, but it pulled eyes, hearts, and ears towards her. She asked questions that felt personal. Her presence wasn't loud, but it pulled towards her. She asked questions at just the right moments and remembered details no one else would. People thought she cared. They were wrong. From the details no one else would. People were wrong. From the very first interaction, Dora studied them. Every pause, every hesitation, every word that could reveal a weakness, a hope. Very first interaction, Dora studied every hesitation, every word that could reveal a weakness, a hope, a secret she could later use. She began planting subtle doubts, comments that seemed innocent but nudged people towards confusion. She began comments that seemed innocent but nudged her 5-filter mask was flawless. The mask made you trust her before you could even question her motives, and that trust was her playground. The mask made you trust her, and that trust was her playground. A couplet that made someone feel special, then a subtle comparison that made them doubt themselves. A kind word about someone else's tragedy, followed by a story that twisted the truth, making her the hero of someone else's pain. A friendly warning about someone in the group prompted arguments, tension, the truth, making her the hero. A friendly warning and division that she quietly watched blossom. Her sweetness was a mask. The mask was flawless. And division that she quietly watched was a mask. The mask. Within weeks, people were arguing over things that didn't even remember happening. Spreading misinformation Dora had planted casually over things that didn't even remember, and Dora had planted casually, almost apologetically. Her favorite phrase, delivered with a sheepish shrug, was, "Wait, what? I just don't know how things got so messy." They believed her. Of course they did. They believed her. Of course they did. Because who would lie so convincingly pretending to be innocent? And all the while, Dora collected not just... They believed her. Of course, so convincingly pretending to stories, but control, influence, chaos. She knew exactly how to see doubt, how to pit people with stories, but control. She knew exactly how to see against each other, how to turn kindness into leverage. People who thought they were friends were now pieces on a board, moving according to her subtle nudges. Kindness into leverage, now pieces on a board, moving somewhere deep down. She might have called it survival, or maybe just like the power. Either way, one thing was certain: Dora called it survival, or power. Either way, I thrived off of it. Every conflict, every secret revealed, every tear shed that fed her, sharpened her, made her presence indispensable. Every secret revealed, every sharpened her, made her presence indispensable. By the end of the month, everyone in the circle had changed. Friends whispered behind backs. Allies doubted motives, and Dora, she smiled. Change. Friends whispered behind backs, and Dora, she smiled, calm and unshakable, as if nothing had happened. But it had. Everything had. Because with Dora, she smiled. But it had. Everything. The storm always started from the smallest smile. Chapter 2. The first lie that worked. It started with a friend's private story. Dora listened carefully. She nodded, sympathized, appeared kind. But later she retold it, changed details, inserted herself as the hero, amplified the drama. The response was explosive. People believed her. They rallied behind her. They trusted her more by the drama. They believed her. They rallied behind her than the person who had lived the truth. This was intoxicating. Dora realized she could manipulate not just attention, but perception itself. She had tasted power and she wanted more. She could see the dollar signs. It would soon come her way. A friend mentioned something private, a story about being hurt by someone outside the group. Dora listened, nodded, and sympathized. Her way. A friend mentioned. Dora listened, nodded. Her soft voice and gentle eyes made the friend feel safe, even cherished. But Dora didn't just listen, she absorbed every detail, every pause, every tiny vulnerability. A few hours later, she retold the story to another friend with changes. Subtle changes. Details exaggerated. Innocuous facts rearranged. With changes. Subtle, rearranged. The villain was sharper, the betrayal deeper, and Dora, of course, emerged as the one who had been there the whole time. And Dora, of course, been there the whole time, offering guidance, comfort, and protection. The response was immediate. People leaned in. They sympathized. They rallied behind her. They trusted her more than the person who had lived the truth. Dora smiled. The lie worked perfectly. It was they trusted her more than the person. Dora smiled. The lie worked perfectly. It wasn't just that people believed her. It was that they started acting on her story. Friends who had never spoken were now arguing. Allies questioned loyalties. Subtle fractures formed, tiny enough to be denied if anyone asked, but real enough to give Dora influence. She began to see a pattern. 1. Collect the information. Enough to be denied if anyone asked. She began to 2. Reframe it. 3. Insert herself as the moral or emotional center. 4. Watch chaos bloom. The more dramatic the lie, chaos bloom. The faster it spread. The faster it spread, the more power she had. The more power she had, the more her friends, her followers, and even casual acquaintances began to depend on her for clarity, for guidance, for validation. With all of this coming together, money and funding soon followed. By the end of the week, Dora was the axis around which the group spun. The friend who had confided in her, confused, hurt, and suspicious, but unsure why anyone would disbelieve her. Dora confided in her, confused, anyone would disbelieve her. She acted as if nothing had happened, as if the friendship had simply grown stronger, and the truth, the quiet, real, she acted as if nothing had, and the truth, the quiet, fragile truth, was buried under a carefully woven web of lies, half-truths, and selective memory. It was intoxicating. For Dora, this was no longer a game. It was survival, art, and the power all at once. And she had tasted it, and all the sweet thrill of control and art, and the power, and she had tasted it, and all this addictive high of chaos, the rush of being the one everyone turned to for answers she had invented. She realized, almost with pride, the rush of being the one, she realized, almost with pride, that she could never go back. Once you learn how to bend people with words and warmth, the world itself becomes a stage, and everyone else is an audience. Once you learn how to bend, and everyone else is an audience. Chapter 3, Empire of Whispered Lies. Chapter 3, Dora expanded her influence. She whispered doubts, offered subtle advice. Dora whispered doubts, offered subtle advice, turned friends against each other without lifting a finger. Her webs grew. One person's misunderstanding became two people's argument, then three, then a circle of conflict. And Dora thrived. The chaos became her energy, the fights, her applause. She had become a storm people could conflict. And Dora became her energy. She had become a storm people could only see partially. They felt it, but she remained untouchable. From creating characters to catfish only see partially. Untouchable. From creating fish others to skimming off the top of donations. Dora has now so focused she couldn't see the chaos she was causing. Dora had always thrived in the shadows of attention, but the digital world offered her a new playground. She created profiles with ease. The one that stood out the most, but the digital world, the one that stood out the most was a truck driver. Each persona was a mask, each mask a doorway into someone else's life, their secrets. The one that stood out the most, each persona was a mask, someone else's life, their secrets, their desires, and their trust. At first, it was just experiments. She sent messages, crafted responses, their desires, and it was just experiments. She sent messages and laughed at the reactions. But soon, it became a thrill she couldn't resist. She wasn't just playing with names on a screen. She was orchestrating moments, carefully curating emotions like a puppeteer. She wasn't just playing with names on a curating emotions like a puppeteer. Compliments, confidences, late night conversations all delivered just right to keep them hooked. Confidences, just right to keep them hooked. She learned what people wanted to hear. She learned their fears, their dreams, their weaknesses, and their finances. She learned what peers, their dreams, their weaknesses, and their finances. Dora hoarded these interactions like treasures, cataloging them in her mind, feeling the rush of control. But even as the thrill grew, so did these interactions like treasures, rush of control. Did the risk. The lines between her real self and her mask blurred. She found herself smiling at her phone at 3 a.m, typing words that weren't her real self, and her mask blurred. Smiling at her phone at 3 a.m, hers, laughing at jokes she didn't understand, and crying at stories she couldn't possibly relate to. One night, she switched profiles mid-conversation, chatting with two people simultaneously under different names. The exhilaration was intoxicating. Profiles mid-conversation under different names. The exhilaration was intoxicating, but when one of them accidentally referenced something the other had said, she froze. The careful web she'd spun threatened to unravel. Referenced something the other had said. The careful web she'd spun surged, but instinct took over. Quick apologies, clever redirections, subtle excuses took over. Corrections, subtle excuses, she patched the hole seamlessly. It was addictive, dangerous, and corrections, subtle excuses, it was addictive, exhilarating. Dora knew she was playing with fire, but yet couldn't stop. The screen was her stage, her mask were her tools, and the people who trusted her were her audience. And somewhere deep inside, a small, quiet voice whispered that this ends. And somewhere deep inside, the game wouldn't last forever. But for now, she was untouchable, invisible, and untamed. Her loud music and obnoxious yelling with frequent pauses to cough kept her going. Chapter 4, The Lie That Moved Mountains. A vague message planted in a group chat sparked chaos, creating a character whom she would later use to catfish others. A vague message would later use to catfish others. Arguments erupted, trust fractured, and Dora silently, sweet and concerned, while her would later use to catfish others. Trust fractured, and Dora silently, while her while her web expanded. Denial was her only defense. Her influence didn't come from force; it came from perception. While her web expanded. Her influence didn't come from people argued, speculated, and misremembered, all while Dora smiled. She had learned the ultimate truth. People don't fight the one who and misremembered, all while she had learned the ultimate truth, confronts them in the storm. They fight each other, and you watch and hide, preferably in the bathroom with a flashlight. Chapter 5. The Web Expands. Dora moved between multiple groups. Chapter 5. The Web Expands. Dora moved between multiple groups, connecting lies like threads. She nudged arguments, planted doubt, and let people create their own chaos around her. She would share her lies of occupation, nudged arguments, planted down her own chaos around her. She would share her lies of occupation and certifications. Her control wasn't visible, but it was total. She had become an architect of perception, an invisible director of conflict, and she thrived. Heavy breathing and all. Dora had a talent. Heavy breathing and all. Dora had a talent few could match. She could be anyone she wanted at any time. It wasn't just a game, it was a survival tactic. In every conversation, she assessed the room. Anyone she wanted at any time. It was a survival tactic. Listened for clues, measuring gaps in knowledge, and sizing up who needed guidance. And then she would step in, cloaked in confidence as an expert. Her stories were carefully curated. She had been a karate master, a hospice worker, crisis hotline. Her stories were been a karate master, a hospice operator, and a self-taught canner. Each persona tailored to the audience. When someone mentioned a challenge, she would nod knowingly and drop the perfect antidote, the perfect solution. Always just believable enough. Most of the time, that antidote was turmeric. The perfect solution. Always just believable enough. Most of the time, that antidote. The thrill wasn't just in being admired, it was in the subtle control. People sought her out for guidance, confided their insecurities, and hang on her every word. They didn't question in being admired, it was in the people sought her out for guidance. Her because her confidence was contagious. Her assurance disguised the hollowness of her experience. But maintaining all of these lies were exhausting. She kept spreadsheets in her multiple devices, like her cricket phone. But maintaining all of these lies, kept spreadsheets in her multiple devices of who knew what, which stories she told, and which mask she'd worn most recently. One slip. Which stories she told most recently. One could unravel everything. Yet, Dora thrived on the challenge, the adrenaline of spinning lies. So intricate, they were almost became truth. And when she offered advice, it didn't matter what she had never truly. And when she offered advice, really walked those paths, her words were enough. To her audience, she was a beacon of knowledge, a guide through life's messy realities. To herself, she was a chameleon, a master of illusion, dancing through lives she would never actually live. A master of illusion she would never actually live. Somewhere, in a quieter movement, a thought flickered. What if someone discovered the truth? But Dora pushed it aside. For now, the applause, the funding, and the illusion of mastery were more than enough. She was untouchable, omniscient, and utterly alone in her construction. And the illusion of mastery were more untouchable, omniscient, and utterly alone in her constructed empire of lies. Chapter 6. Cracks in the Mask. For the 6. Cracks in the Mask. First time in months, Dora felt a flicker of unease. It started as a small comment, a private message, something that didn't fit. A friend who had once laughed at her words now paused before replying. Another question to detail she had presented as truth. At first, she dismissed it. People were forgetful, she told herself. Confused. Overly sensitive, but the flicker grew. Victims she had borrowed stories from were noticing, she told herself. Confused. Victims she had borrowed subtle differences. Twists she had inserted to make herself look heroic. They were speaking it quietly, carefully, testing the waters. That's not. They were speaking it, testing the waters. Not exactly what happened. One wrote in a private message. Another asked, "Why does my story sound so different in your version?" Dora smiled at first. She could handle this. Sound so different in your version? She could handle this. She had handled worse. She had handled the first argument, the first lies, the first chaos. But something was she had handled worse. Lies, the first chaos. Different now. The cracks weren't just whispers, they were growing louder. She tried the old tricks, gentle explanations. I must have understood. Sheepish apologies. Subtle distractions. She whispered doubts about the messages themselves. Maybe they had remembered apologies. She whispered doubts about the messages themselves wrong. Maybe they were overreacting. She leaned on her carefully cultivated image of innocence and concern. Overreacting. Image of innocence and concern. The damage was spreading faster than she could manage. Friends who once followed her guidance blindly now compared notes. Conversations she had manipulated into chaos were now turning back on her. Threads of mistrust that she had spun so carefully began to intertwine in ways she had not into chaos were now turning back on her. She had spun so carefully began to anticipate. And Dora realized something she had never admitted to herself. Control is fragile. And Dora realized herself. Control is fragile. No matter how carefully she crafted her lies, no matter how sweet her smile or convincing her concern, truth had a way of creeping back in. Her lies, no matter how sweet her concern, truth, and the people she had used, the stories she had twisted, were starting to reclaim their power. For the first time, Dora, the story she had twisted, for the first time, felt a flicker of fear. Not the fear of being caught in public. She had faced that before, and she feared going to a chicken festival. No. Not the fear of being before, and she feared going to a chicken. This was something deeper. The fear was her own mask might crack, that the chaos she had thrived on could one day turn on her. The web she had built so meticulously, the empire of whispers and lies, suddenly felt like sand slipping through her fingers. And for the first time, Dora understood that some storms couldn't be controlled, even if she was the one who started them. Chapter 7. When the whisper turns into a roar. This was her very own words. People began comparing timelines, comparing stories. Dora's audience started asking the questions she couldn't answer. The roar of attention had turned on her. Dora was used to whispers. They were her native language. Soft doubts, quiet rumors, little seeds of chaos. Dora was used to whispers. They were soft doubts, quiet rumors that bloomed into conflict. She had always controlled them, but now the whispers weren't hers anymore. They were about her. She had always controlled them anymore. They were about her. It started with one post, a small one. Someone gently saying that Dora had retold a story in a way that wasn't true. They weren't One post, a small one. Dora had retold a story in a way that angry, just confused, just hurt. Dora deleted it. The chaos Dora loved wasn't flowing outward, it was circling back. She went live that night, wrapped in a soft blanket and softer words, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. This is known as her creepy voice, enough to sound real. This is known as her creepy voice to most. I don't know why people are saying these things, she told her audience. Most. She told her audience. I only ever tried to help. The comments flooded in with hearts and reassurance. For a moment, she felt safe again. The comments flooded in with moment. She felt safe again. The same safety she felt when she could hide in her bathroom on the phone with close friends as an imagery person walked through her woods. The same safety she felt when she could close friends as an imagery person walked through her woods. Imaginary person. But outside that live stream, something else was happening. People were comparing notes. Screenshots were being shared. Outside that live stream, some were comparing notes. Messages Dora thought were private were surfacing. Stories she had twisted were being placed side by side with the truth, and the pattern became undeniable. Surfacing. Stories were being placed side by side with. Dora wasn't just confused. She was consistent. Consistently changing details. Dora wasn't just confusing details. Consistently inserting herself as the hero and consistently profiting from other people's pain. Constantly details, consistently profiting, constantly lying. That was when the roar began. Not outrage, not screaming. Questions. Not outrage, not screaming. Why did this story change? Why does this person say something different? Why do all the lies lead back to Dora? She tried to drown them out with loud hip-hop. Why does this person say something lead back to Dora? Music. Stories of being attacked and being misunderstood. It always worked before. But this time, the noise didn't go away. And being misunderstood. But this time, the whisper had become something else. Something louder than her lies. Something she couldn't control. The truth. Something else. Something loud she couldn't control. Chapter 8. The Circle Tightens. The circle tightens. Private messages went public. Stories aligned. Contradictions couldn't be denied. Dora's chaos had a shape. Everyone could see it. She tried to spin it, distract it. Contradictions couldn't be. Everyone could see it. She redirect it. Nothing worked. The web of lies was finally visible. Dora could feel it now. Not just in the nothing worked. The web of Dora could feel it. Comments, not just in the messages, in the silence. People who used to rush to defend her were pausing. Messages in the people who used to rush to defend, reading, watching, thinking. The crowd that once moved on her emotions was starting to move on information. And information was the one thing Dora had never been able to control for long. Private conversations became public. Stories lined up. Timelines were built. People weren't yelling. Was the one thing Dora had never. Private conversations became public or built. People weren't yelling. They were comparing. Dora tried to keep ahead of it. She went live more, shared more fake tears, more chaos. They were comparing. She went live more, shared urgent distractions, a new emergency every day, a new villain, a new story, but the audience wasn't chasing. New emergency every day, story, but the audience anymore. They were watching her, Someone posted a side-by-side comparison. Dora's version of a story and the original. The differences were subtle, but devastating. Dora always made herself the center, the savior, the brave one, the one who knew everything, but devastating. You're the brave one, the one who knew everything. She was exposed not by a single lie, but by a pattern. For the first time since she learned to wear sweetness like an armor, she was exposed not by a single lie, wear sweetness like an armor. Dora felt naked. There was not enough Bath and Body Works products that could cover up the stink of her lies and manipulation. The chaos she had created was no longer her stage. It was her courtroom, and everyone was paying attention. Chapter 9. The Receipts. Chapter 9. Receipts appeared everywhere. Clips, screenshots, timelines. Dora's words contradicted themselves. Her stories once appeared everywhere. Clips, lines. Dora's words contradicted themselves. Her stories, once flexible, now formed a clear, undeniable pattern. The truth wasn't loud. It just existed. Now formed a clear, undeniable truth wasn't loud. It just existed. Dora always believed emotion could save her. Crying, fear, out. Truth wasn't loud. It just existed. Crying, rage, innocence. Those were her shields. She could often use the crying, innocence. Those were her shields. She could often use the excuse of mopping and dusting frequently to hide from any form of accountability. But she had underestimated something, excuse of mopping and dusting, underestimated something far more dangerous. Memory. Someone started posting receipts, not opinions, not insults. Underestimated something. Memory. Opinions, not insults, just facts. Her words. Old clips of Dora saying one thing, new clips of her saying the opposite. It's just facts. Her words. One thing, new clips, screenshots of messages she had sent and later denied. Posts she had deleted, archived, or pretended never existed and later denied. Pretended never existed. The timeline grew. Neat. Clear. Impossible to ignore. And suddenly, Dora's chaos had clear. And suddenly, Dora's chaos had a shape. People could see it. They didn't have to believe anyone. They just had to watch Dora contradict herself. See it. They didn't have to watch Dora contradict herself. Her stories didn't just change, they evolved to fit whatever made her look best in the moment. Evolved to fit whatever. And the audience finally understood something chilling. Dora was confused. She was curating something chilling. In reality. Victims no longer had to fight alone. Their stories were backed by proof now. What once felt like gaslighting became visible. Victims no longer had to fight alone. Proof now. What once visible, undeniable, in black and white. Dora tried to say it was fake. Then she said it was taken out of in black and white. Dora tried to say it was fake. Context. Then she said she was being targeted. But lies collapse when stacked against time. The more she spoke, the clearer it became. And for the first time, stacked against time, the more Dora couldn't control the narrative. The narrative had learned how to control her. Dora couldn't control the narrative, had learned how to control her. Hold on, Gemini, I'm getting some water.
No, you're good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm back.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I'm back. All right, chapter 10. The panic behind the smile. Dora stopped sleeping. Stayed up. The panic behind the smile. Stopped sleeping. Stayed up all hours of the night, drinking coffee and spraying her body down with magnesium. Her cricket phone never left. Stopped sleeping. Stayed up. Her body down with magnesium. Left her hand. Notifications poured in faster than she could read them. Every refresh brought another receipt, another timeline, another person saying poured in faster than she could read them. Brought another receipt, another thing. That happened to me too. She had built her world on chaos, but this was a kind she didn't recognize. This chaos didn't swirl. She had built her world and she didn't recognize. This chaos didn't swirl. It closed in. Dora went live again. Her voice just low and creepy enough to sound sincere. She told her audience she was being attacked, that jealous people were lying, and that the internet would be enough to sound sincere. Were lying, and that the internet was cruel to kind women who tried to help. Some believed her, but not like before. The comments weren't hearts anymore, they were questions. Why did this change? Why did you say something different last year? Why did this change? Why do so many people have the same story about you? Dora ignored them. She kept talking, because if she stopped talking, why do so many you? The silence would swallow her whole. Behind the scenes, she messaged people frantically. Old friends. The silence would swallow. Behind the scenes, she messaged friends, former victims, anyone who might still listen. She begged, explained, blamed. She tried to rewrite anyone who might still listen. Reality faster than it could catch up. But truth is patient, and Dora was finally running out of lies. Reality faster than it could catch up. And Dora was finally running out of lies. The mask was cracking. All of the 5 layers of filter was slowly slipping away. Not loudly, but enough for everyone to see. All of the 5 layers of filter, not loudly, but enough for everyone. Chapter 11. The Counterattack. Dora tried to fight back. Posts, accusations, cries of betrayal. But the more she tried, the more obvious the pattern became. She was defending control, not cries of betrayal. But the pattern became. She was truth. Every desperate act revealed her more clearly. Dora had always believed that if you strike first, you control the story, so she did. Act revealed her more clearly. If you strike first, you control the story. She posted long messages about betrayal, about people who were obsessed with her, about being stalked, harassed, targeted. She never about people who were about being stalked, harassed. She never named anyone. She didn't have to. The implication was enough. Her followers filled in the blanks. They went after anyone who spoke out. They flooded comment sections. The implication was enough. Filled in the blanks. They went out. They tried to drown the noise in truth. It had worked before, but this time, the noise didn't erase the evidence. They tried to drown the noise in truth. The noise didn't erase the evidence. Every attack Dora launched was met with another receipt, another timeline, another comparison of her words against themselves. The harder she fought, the more obvious it became. She wasn't defending the truth. She was defending control. People started noticing how often Dora avoided direct answers. This was called the famous Dora word salad. How she never explained the contradictions. How she always changed the subject to how hurt she was. Victims. How she always changed the subject to how hurt she didn't need to yell. They just needed to wait. Because Dora, in her desperation, was revealing more than she had ever had before. Every post, every live, every emotional plea added to the same picture. A woman who had built her identity on lies and could no longer keep them. Every live, every emotional, a woman who had built her identity straight. Chapter 12. When the Chapter 12. When the victims speak. The people whose stories she had stolen finally spoke. Not angrily, not dramatically, just honestly. It's not what happened. She changed my words. She profited from my pain. The pattern was undeniable. Dora was no longer the center. At first, they were afraid. Some of them had trusted Dora with the most painful moments of their lives. They had whispered their trauma to her in late-night messages, believing she was them had trusted Dora with the most painful whispered their trauma to her in late-night messages, believing she was safe, that she cared. Now they saw her stories, twisted, edited, monetized. They saw her stories, twisted, playing out in front of strangers. And that hurt more than the original wounds. One person spoke up, then another, then another. They didn't scream. They didn't dramatize. They simply told the truth. That's not what happened. She changed my words. They didn't dramatize. That's not what happened. She used my pain for attention. Their stories lined up like puzzle pieces. And suddenly, Dora wasn't the center of the narrative. My pain for attention. Puzzle pieces. And suddenly, anymore. The people she had borrowed from were reclaiming it. Dora tried to paint them as liars. Borrowed from were reclaiming. Paint them as liars. Unstable, malicious. But something had shifted. Too many voices were saying the same thing. Too many stable, malicious. Too many voices were saying the same thing. Too many scars looked the same. The audience began to understand something chilling. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a pattern. And the audience began to understand this wasn't a misunderstanding. Patterns don't lie. For the first time, Dora couldn't rewrite the story because it wasn't hers to tell anymore. Chapter 13. The crowd pulls away. Her audience drifted, slowly, quietly. Silence replaced applause. Dora realized she had built her life on attention. Without it, she was powerless. The worst thing didn't happen all at once. It happened quietly. People stopped sharing Dora's posts, stopped defending her, stopped jumping into the comment sections to fight for her. It happened quietly. Her. Stopped jumping into. They didn't flip overnight. They drifted. And that terrified Dora more than hate ever could. Hate meant attention. They didn't flip overnight. Ever could. Hate, silence meant she was becoming irrelevant. Her follower count stalled. Her views dropped. Her money slowed down. Her lives felt emptier. The crowd that once saw her as a hero now watched her like a puzzle. Not cheering, not booing, just the crowd that once saw her as a hero, not cheering, trying to figure out how they had been fooled. Some unfollowed without saying a word. Some stayed, but only to watch the fallout. Had been fooled. Some stayed, and Dora felt it in her bones. She was losing the one thing she had built, everything around, the audience. Without bones, everything around them. Her stories had no power. Her chaos had no stage. And the girl who had always needed applause was finally standing alone. Her chaos had always needed applause was finally standing alone. All she had now was to concentrate on how she was going to get money. So she decided to sell the van. The van had a saggy roof, very high mileage, missing back seats, a dead battery. Decided to sell the van. Very high mileage, missing back, and all the tires were flat. This didn't matter to Dora. Chapter 14. And all the tires were flat. Chapter 14. The walls close in. Friends stopped replying. Collaborators distanced themselves. Dora's lies, once her armor, became chains. She was trapped by the web she had built. Collaborators distanced themselves. Became chains. She was trapped by the web she had built. Dora still posted, she still went live, but it wasn't the same. The comments were slower. The reactions, fewer. The energy, gone. The comments were slower. Fewer. She spoke into a void that used to be a crowd. Behind the scenes, things were worse. Old friends stopped replying. Collaborators quietly distanced themselves. People who once sought her out now avoided her name. Dora tried to spin it. People who once sought her out. Dora tried to spin it. They're scared. They're being manipulated. They'll come back. But deep down, she knew the truth. People didn't want chaos anymore. They wanted clarity. And Dora had... But deep down, didn't want chaos anymore. They wanted none to give. Every time she tried to defend herself, another contradiction surfaced. Every time she tried to defend herself, every attempt to control the narrative only tightened the circle around her. The lies that had once made her powerful were now chains. Lies that had once made her powerful. And Dora, for the first time, felt trapped by the very web she spun. Chapter 15. The Last Performance. Dora went live one last time. The last performance. Dora went live. She cried, explained, begged, performed. But no one was listening. The audience had left. The stage begged, performed. No one was listening. The audience was empty. Dora planned it carefully. The lighting, the angle, the tone of her creepy voice. It was just going to be the end. She would control it. She went live and told her story one more time. A story of betrayal, of being misunderstood. Told her story one more time. Of being kind woman destroyed by jealous people who couldn't stand her in light. She cried. Dora's reality, people who couldn't stand her in light. Dora's reality was not her normal tears, but tears from the 5 inches of dust that had accumulated on her ceiling fan. She paused. Dora's reality accumulated on her ceiling fan. She paused. She spoke about pain and survival and how hard it was to be her. For a moment, it almost worked. Then the comments changed. Someone posted a screenshot. Another shared a clip. Then another. The chat filled, not with hearts. Someone posted a screenshot. Then another. But with questions. Dora kept talking, but no one was listening anymore. Her words fell into a room that had already made up its own mind. Dora kept talking, but no one. Her words fell into a room. The performance was over, and the audience had left. Dora was left with just loud hip-hop music in the background. The performance was over, and the audience. Dora was left with just loud. She clenched tightly to her magnifying glass and mop. Chapter 16. When the noise and mop stops. Alone, Dora stared at a dark screen. Her empire of chaos was gone. The lies, the manipulation, the stolen stories were now all meaningless. For the first time, Dora wasn't performing. The stolen stories. For the first time, she was just alone with nothing but her saved balls of pocket lint. The payday loans compiled high, without a loan, with nothing lint. The payday loans compiled high. Without the funds from strangers, how would she pay them off? The chaos was gone, and without chaos, store it felt empty. Pay them off. The chaos was store it felt empty. She thought of all the stories she had borrowed, all the pain she had reshaped, all the people she had pushed into each other. She thought of all the pain she had reshaped, other just to feel powerful. All of her lies and manipulation. None of them are here now. No audience, no victims. All of her lies and manipulation. None of them are here now. No audience, no victims, no lies left to tell. Just a woman who had built herself out of other people's truth and was now left with nothing of her own. For the first time in her life, Dora wasn't performing. She was just alone. And she didn't know how to live there. She didn't know how to live there. Dora had to do what she had always done, which was to seek out an older person to take care of her. And she didn't know how to live there. An older person to take care of her. Chapter 17. Reinvention. Unexpected. Dora quit. No drama, no announcement. Chapter 17. Reinvention. Dora quit. No pause. The chaos ended. The audience evaporated. The lies no longer mattered. Ended. The audience lies no longer mattered. She had burned through every mask and filter layer, every friend, every performance, and yet life went on. Lies no longer mattered. Every performance. She returned to herself, or at least to something new. Dora discovered a quiet obsession. Turmeric. Not herself, or at least to some. Dora discovered a quiet obsession. Not for Instagram wellness photos, not for followers, not for chaos, but for preservation. She began canning it. Small jars, not for followers, not for. She began canning it. Small jars lined up neatly on her kitchen shelves, each sealed, labeled, and orderly. The smell of turmeric and vinegar became her new stage. It would savor each sealed, labeled. Turmeric and vinegar became her new stage. Hundreds that she could spend on Bath and Body Works supplies. When she wasn't canning, she walked dogs. Bath and Body Works supplies. When she wasn't canning, she walked dogs. Rain, creeks, mud, it didn't matter. Her shoes were always wet, crusted with mud. But she didn't care. She wasn't canning, she walked dogs. Her shoes were always wet, crusted with mud. But she didn't care. The dogs didn't care. She didn't need applause. She just knew the dogs would love her 40-mile walks. No one followed her. No one argued with her. The chaos that had defined her life was gone. 40-mile walks. Argued with her. The chaos. And Dora realized in a strange, peaceful way that she didn't need to be a storm anymore. Some people called it reinvention. Some called it exile. But Dora didn't care. She had learned something the hard way. You can build empires of chaos. Didn't care. You can build empires of chaos, or you can quietly preserve turmeric and walk dogs in wet shoes. No audience, no chaos, just calm. Build empires of chaos, turmeric and walk dogs in wet shoes. No chaos, just calm. She had learned the hard way. Some storms are better left behind. Sometimes the simplest life. She had learned the hard way. Left behind. Sometimes of wet shoes and turmeric jars is the best one that finally lets you breathe. The best one that finally lets you breathe. Epilogue. The quiet after the noise. The internet didn't notice when she disappeared. Her posts lingered, her videos remained, but the comments stopped. The applause stopped. Those she had hurt were left with the task of reclaiming their stories. In Dora, she had not stopped. The applause stopped, left with the task of reclaiming their stories. In Dora, she had nothing but her jars, her dogs, and a life rebuilt quietly from the ruins of her own chaos. She had survived herself, and that, she realized, was enough. And a life rebuilt quietly from the she had survived herself, and that postscript. By the time the story ends, Dora would like the reader to believe that she was misunderstood and that everything that happened was just chaos. Reader to believe that she was misunderstood, bad timing, or other people's cruelty. But the truth, like all things she had tried to bury, eventually surfaced. Dora did not simply make people's cruelty, but the truth eventually surfaced. Stage, she built patterns. She treated her friends badly, used them when it was convenient, and discarding them when they asked for honesty or accountability. She treated her friends badly, used them and discarding them when they asked for honesty. Loyalty to Dora was never mutual. It was conditional, and it expired the moment someone questioned her version of events. She lied about catfishing. She lied about social media accounts she created to pretend someone questioned her version of events. Social media accounts she created to pretend weren't hers. She lied about her employment, about where she worked, what she did, and how successful she was. Social media accounts she created to pretend about her employment, about she lied on family members, twisting their words and intentions to fit whatever stories she needed to sell at the time. She lied on family members to fit whatever story. She lied about some donations, allowing people to believe that all the money was being donated. However, she lied, allowing people to believe that all the however, she lied. She lied about looking at people's information, tracking IP addresses, and calling people's employers. She created accounts to dox people. However, she lied, calling people's employers. She created accounts to dox people, which caused them to leave the social media scene. She lied about having access to people's financial details like debit cards and banking information. And those were only the lies like debit cards and banking information that could be proven. What made Dora dangerous wasn't just dishonesty, it was how confidently she wore it. She spoke it in certainty. She told her story. What made Dora dangerous wasn't just she wore it. She spoke stories with conviction. She made lies sound like facts, and when anyone tried to expose them, she didn't correct them, and she erased the people who noticed. Dora lies sound like facts, and when any correct them, and she erased the had a gift for reinventing herself just long enough to avoid being held responsible. When a circle of friends grew too close to the truth, she would disappear and just long enough to avoid a circle of friends grew too close to reappear somewhere new, with a new persona, a new story, and new people who hadn't yet seen behind the mask. To them, she was always the persona, a new story, yet seen behind the mask, the victim. To them, there was always a villain that wasn't her. That was her pattern. Get close. To them, there was her. That was her pattern. Get close, create chaos, tell lies, get caught, run. She didn't apologize. She relocated emotionally, socially. Get caught, and apologize. She relocated digitally, leaving confusion and damage behind her like footprints in wet cement. In the end, Dora wasn't destroyed and damaged behind her like foot. In the end, Dora wasn't destroyed by enemies or exposed by other dramatic revelation. She was undone by her own repetition. Every lie created another crack. Every new identity made the truth harder to hide. And every group she abandoned became proof of who she really was. This book is not about a woman who made the truth harder to hide. Of who she really was. This book is not about a woman who made mistakes. It is about a woman who refused to stop making them and refused to stop running from them. And that is the real mask she could never take off. Them. And that is
Thank you, Trouble.
You're so welcome.
Yay.
Thank you for the gifts. I was not watching. I'm so sorry.
You're good. Thank you so much. So I just want to explain real quick. I started off by good. Thank you so much. I want to explain real quick by writing this, and it wasn't just on the behalf of myself. It was on the behalf of a lot of people that Dora has affected. On the behalf of myself, it was of people that Dora has affected. And I went to do it as an ebook, and I'm still trying to figure out a way that I can publish it that way without charging it as an ebook, and that I can publish it. I don't want anything for this. So until I do so, if anybody wants a copy, I don't, just message me. I don't for this. So until I don't, just message me. I don't mind sending it out. But I do want to say thank you to Trouble for making yourself available to read this tonight. And I want to thank my mods and my tappers and my gifters. Basically, thank you so much for joining and everything. Sometimes the people around us aren't always what they seem, and everybody needs to know that it's okay for you to set your boundaries, ask questions, and trust your instincts, your gut. If anybody has any questions about anything, there's a lot of hidden messages in here. I basically tried to take all the video. If anybody has any questions about the jizz in here, I basically tried those that I have posted thus already and kind of combine them into a story that wasn't bashing. Basically truth. I kind of also tried to give her a light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you could kind of say. And with that, please stay curious, ask questions, and always keep your eyes open, because you never know when a mask might fall. And always keep your eyes open when a mask might fall. Thank you, everybody. Good night. When a mask might fall.